You won't believe the nerve of some people, and when I tell you this story, you'll probably shake your head the same way I did. Picture this. I had just settled into my dream ranch, acres of rolling land stretching farther than the eye could see, a quiet escape from the noise and mess of city living. Every morning, I woke to the sound of birds, the low hum of cattle in the fields, and the kind of peace you can't buy in a neighborhood packed with fences and rules. For me, this ranch wasn't just property, it was freedom. No HOA, no board meetings, no nosy neighbors telling me what color my fence should be. Just land, sky, and silence. Or at least, that's what I thought. Because one morning, my so-called peace was shattered. I was sitting on my porch, coffee steaming in my hands, when I heard the gravel crunching on my driveway. My head shot up, because out here, no one just drops by. The nearest neighbor was a good 10 minutes away. That's when I saw it. A shiny silver SUV rolling straight through my ranch gate like it wasn't even there. I blinked, thinking maybe I was seeing things. Nope. The SUV slowed, dust trailing behind it, and out stepped a woman who looked like she had just walked off a reality TV show. Expensive sunglasses, hair piled high, a clipboard clutched against her chest like she was on official business. She didn't even look around to admire the land. She walked straight toward me with a face that screamed entitlement. "Excuse me," she said sharply, as if she were the one who owned the place. "This road is a community access path. I'll be driving through whenever I like. You'll need to keep this gate open." For a second, I thought I misheard her. I set my mug down slowly, squinting at her. "I'm sorry, what?" She gave a dramatic sigh, like explaining basic facts to a child. "This road. The one that leads through your property. It's easier for us in the HOA to use it to get to the highway. Saves 5 minutes. So I'll be using it. Keep the gate open." I almost laughed, but her face was dead serious. My blood pressure shot up. "Ma'am, this is private land. My ranch. This gate isn't for you, it's for me. You have no right to be here." But instead of apologizing or even looking embarrassed, she smirked. She waved her manicured hand in the air like she was swatting away a fly and said, "We'll see about that." Then, just like that, she turned on her heel, climbed back into her SUV, and drove right through my land like it was a public highway. I stood there frozen, jaw practically on the floor. Did that really just happen? Some random woman barged onto my ranch, claimed it was community access, and told me to keep my gate open? That was my first meeting with Karen. And believe me, it was just the beginning of a nightmare. The next day, I checked the gate. Everything seemed fine, no damage, no broken lock. I thought maybe it was a one-time thing, some mix-up where she thought she had a right to pass. Maybe she'd come to her senses. But then the third morning came. Once again, I was on my porch. Once again, I heard the crunch of tires on gravel. And once again, that same silver SUV rolled right through my gate like she owned the place. Only this time, she didn't even bother stopping to explain herself. She just drove straight past, sunglasses glinting, a smug little smile plastered on her face. That's when it hit me, this wasn't a mistake. This was deliberate. She knew she had no right, but she didn't care. She was testing me, pushing me, daring me to stop her. Later that day, I asked around town. It didn't take long for someone to say her name, Karen. And the moment I heard it, I almost groaned. Because I'd heard the stories. Everyone in the nearby HOA hated and feared her. She was the self-proclaimed queen of the neighborhood. Ran every meeting, made up rules, handed out fines for things as ridiculous as mismatched curtains or leaving your trash bin out 10 minutes late. The kind of person who lives for control. And now she had decided she was going to control me, too. That night, I couldn't sleep. My ranch was supposed to be my safe place, my escape from people exactly like her. Yet here she was, barging through my gate whenever she pleased, treating my land like it was some shortcut road. My anger simmered as I replayed her words in my head. This road is a community access path. I'll be driving through whenever I like. The next morning, I decided to send a message. I went out early with a hammer and nails and put up a big wooden sign right next to the gate. In bold red letters, it said, "Private property, no trespassing." I stood back, hands on my hips, satisfied. No one could argue with that. Surely even Karen would see it and realize she was in the wrong. Except that afternoon, I heard the SUV again. Tires on gravel, engine humming, and then her voice echoing across the open air. She had rolled her window down, slowed just enough to shout, "Signs don't apply to HOA members." And then she drove right past the sign like it wasn't even there. I swear, I nearly dropped the wrench I was holding. Did she really just say that? My sign, my property, my gate, none of it mattered, because she believed being part of an HOA gave her immunity from basic laws? It would have been funny if it wasn't so infuriating. I realized then that Karen wasn't just entitled. She was dangerous. Dangerous in the way people get when they think rules don't apply to them. She believed she was untouchable, and the more I resisted, the more determined she became. Over the next few days, it got worse. Sometimes she'd honk her horn as she passed, just to make sure I knew she was there. Sometimes she'd slow down, roll her window all the way down, and wave at me mockingly while I stood on my porch, fists clenched at my sides. And sometimes, this one really got me, she'd bring another car with her. Friends from the HOA, following her through my land like it was their new community road. One evening, I overheard her talking to another neighbor while she idled near my fence line. She laughed and said, "Don't worry, I've got him under control. He'll cave eventually." That was it. That was the moment the line was crossed. I wasn't just dealing with a rude neighbor anymore. I was dealing with a power-hungry woman who thought she could bend me to her will. And if I didn't put a stop to it soon, she'd take more and more until my whole ranch was nothing but her personal playground. So right there, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the last light faded across my land, I made a decision. Karen wanted a war? Fine. She was going to get one. And I was already planning a trap she'd never see coming. The very next morning I stood by the gate, arms crossed, waiting like a guard on duty. My horses were grazing in the distance, the sun was just peeking over the hills, and the smell of fresh earth filled the air. For a moment, everything looked so peaceful. But deep down, I was tense, because I knew she would come. Karen wasn't the kind of woman to back down. She thrived on confrontation, on proving she could bulldoze anyone in her way. Sure enough, I heard the hum of an engine in the distance. Gravel crunched, dust rose, and that shiny SUV appeared right on schedule, like clockwork. She didn't even hesitate this time. The gate was shut, but she slowed down, got out of the SUV, and with a look of pure entitlement, unlatched it herself. My blood boiled as I watched her swing the gate wide open like it was hers to command. She climbed back in and drove forward, rolling past me with that same smug grin plastered on her face. I raised my hand and shouted, "Karen, stop. You are trespassing." She leaned her head out the window, sunglasses hiding her eyes, but I could hear the arrogance in her voice. "It's not trespassing if it's community property. Learn the rules." Then she hit the gas, leaving me in a cloud of dust. Community property? My jaw clenched so tight it hurt. This wasn't a shared playground. It wasn't a communal garden. It was my ranch, bought with my money, my sweat, my work. And this woman had convinced herself it belonged to her because her HOA bubble told her she was important. That night, I called a buddy of mine who works as a county surveyor. I asked him to double-check all my property lines. He came out with his maps, his instruments, and his professional opinion, and confirmed what I already knew. the road cutting across my ranch was private. 100% mine. Not a public easement. Not a shared route. Just my driveway, leading to my home. He even printed the documents and stamped them, just in case I needed proof. I pinned the papers to my wall and stared at them for a long time. Facts didn't matter to Karen. Control did. The following weekend, I took another step. I bought a heavy-duty lock and chain for the gate. I closed it, clicked the lock shut, and thought to myself, let's see her try now. But if you've ever dealt with someone like Karen, you know locks don't stop them, they just make them more creative. The very next day, I came home from running errands to find the gate swinging wide open again. The lock? It was on the ground, cut clean through with bolt cutters. My stomach dropped. She had actually come onto my land, destroyed my lock, and helped herself to my driveway. I picked up the broken lock in disbelief. My ranch was supposed to be my fortress, my safe place. Now it felt violated. I checked the tire tracks, and sure enough, her SUV had left deep impressions in the dirt. She had been here, no doubt about it. That night, anger kept me awake. I paced the porch, the cool air brushing against my skin, as the horses snorted softly in the distance. I could practically hear Karen's mocking voice in my head, telling me I'd cave eventually. She thought she had me cornered, like I had no choice but to let her use my land. But she didn't know who she was dealing with. The next morning, I installed a motion-activated camera in the trees. Hidden well, angled perfectly at the gate. Every time that SUV crossed my property line, I'd have video proof. And believe me, I wanted proof. Because I was starting to think the only way to stop her was to get the law involved. Sure enough, 2 days later, the camera caught her in full color. SUV rolling through, her face plain as day, bolt cutters still sitting in her passenger seat. She looked proud of herself, like she was queen of the land. Watching the footage later that night, I felt a mix of rage and satisfaction. Rage that she was still getting away with it. Satisfaction that soon she wouldn't. But before I rushed to call the sheriff, I decided to give her one last chance. Maybe, just maybe, if I confronted her with evidence, she'd back off. So I waited. The next morning, right on schedule, her SUV rolled up. This time, I was already standing by the gate. I stepped forward, raising my hand to stop her. She braked hard, dust swirling around us. For a moment, we just stared at each other, the ranch owner and the self-proclaimed HOA queen, like two gunslingers in an old western. Karen, I said firmly, my voice low but steady, this stops now. You've cut my lock. You've ignored my signs. I have cameras recording every single time you drive through. You are trespassing, and if you don't stop, I will call the sheriff. She tilted her head, smirk still tugging at her lips. Oh, please. The sheriff won't care. We're the HOA. We set the rules here. That camera footage means nothing. You're just one man against an entire community. My fists clenched. She wasn't scared. Not even close. If anything, she seemed energized, like the fight thrilled her. Then she leaned out her window, voice dripping with arrogance. You'll lose, cowboy. People like me always win. And with that, she revved the engine and tore past me, forcing me to step aside or get hit. I stood there, heart pounding, watching her disappear down my driveway. Dust settled around me like smoke after a fire. That was the moment I knew talking wasn't going to fix this. Karen wasn't the type to listen to reason. She only understood one thing, being outsmarted. So as I walked back to the porch, I began to form a plan. A plan not just to stop her, but to embarrass her so badly she'd never set foot on my property again. I sketched it out in my head piece by piece, imagining her SUV rolling confidently through the gate one last time, only for everything to turn against her in the blink of an eye. I smiled to myself, the first real smile I'd had since this nightmare began. Karen wanted a battle of wills? Fine. She was about to drive straight into a trap she'd never see coming. And this time, I'd be ready. I spent that entire weekend building my plan, and let me tell you, every hammer strike, every turn of the wrench, every bead of sweat that rolled down my forehead carried the weight of weeks of frustration. Karen thought she was clever, thought she could bulldoze her way through my life with her HOA rules and smug attitude. But what she didn't know was that out here, on my ranch, I called the shots. Not her. Not her clipboard. Not her little army of HOA followers. Me. First, I replaced my old ranch gate with a brand new automatic one. Reinforced steel, tall enough to stop even the boldest SUV, and heavy enough that no ordinary bolt cutters would get through it. I wired it to a remote system and connected it to my hidden cameras. The best part? I programmed the gate to work on a timer, something even Karen couldn't anticipate. During the day, the gate would slide open automatically whenever a car approached. But once that car passed the halfway point of my driveway, the gate would slide shut again behind it, fast and heavy. It was like a mousetrap for SUVs. They could get in, sure. But getting out? That was another story. The next step was making sure I had the law on my side. I drove down to the county sheriff's office, footage from my cameras in hand. I showed the deputy everything, Karen driving through, cutting my lock, laughing like she owned the place. The deputy whistled low and shook his head. Yeah, that's trespassing, no doubt about it. Next time she shows up, call us. We'll come out. That was all I needed to hear. I went home, parked myself on the porch, and waited. Days passed, and with each sunrise, I wondered if maybe she'd finally given up. But no, Karen was too proud for that. She was biding her time, waiting for the perfect chance to prove she still had the upper hand. And sure enough, 3 days later, I heard it, the familiar hum of her SUV coming up the road. My pulse quickened as her car rolled into view. She didn't even hesitate, just drove right up like always. The gate slid open smoothly, welcoming her in. She smirked, sunglasses hiding her eyes, as if she had already won. But then the trap sprung. As her SUV passed the halfway mark of my driveway, the gate slid shut behind her with a metallic clang that echoed across the ranch. Karen's head snapped around, confusion flashing across her face. She slowed, then braked hard, dust swirling in the air. She shifted into reverse, trying to backtrack, but it was too late. The gate was locked tight, steel bars glinting in the sun. From my porch, I sipped my coffee and watched. I won't lie, it was satisfying. For once, Karen wasn't in control. For once, she was trapped, boxed in by her own arrogance. She jumped out of the SUV, slamming the door so hard the sound ricocheted across the open land. "You can't do this," she screamed, storming toward me, heels kicking up gravel. "This is illegal. You're holding me hostage." I stood slowly, calm as a stone. Illegal? No, Karen. What's illegal is trespassing on private property. And I've got every bit of it on camera. You've ignored signs, cut my lock, and driven through here dozens of times. You've been warned. Today, you're done. Her face turned beet red. She pointed a finger at me like it was a weapon. "I'll have the entire HOA board sue you into the ground. You don't know who you're messing with." I just raised an eyebrow. Funny. Because I already showed the sheriff exactly who I'm messing with. And guess what, they don't care about your HOA rules. They care about the law. For the first time since I'd met her, I saw something flicker across her face that I hadn't seen before, uncertainty. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She was cornered, literally and figuratively. That's when I pulled out my phone and made the call. "Deputy? She's here." You might want to come by." The silence stretched as she realized I wasn't bluffing. She stomped back to her SUV, slammed the door, and sat there idling, trapped between my locked gate and the dead end of my driveway. Every few minutes she honked the horn, as if somehow that would scare me into opening the gate. But I just sat back down on my porch, rocking chair creaking, and waited. 20 minutes later, the sheriff's cruiser pulled up outside the gate. The deputy stepped out, took one look at Karen's SUV, and then at me, and nodded. I walked over and unlocked the gate just enough for him to step through. The deputy leaned against the steel bars, arms crossed. "Ma'am, we've talked about this. You've been warned more than once. Do you understand you're trespassing?" Karen threw her door open, storming out in full dramatic fashion. "This is harassment. I have HOA rights. He can't trap me here like a criminal." The deputy sighed, shaking his head. "Ma'am, HOA rights don't mean a thing outside your neighborhood. This is his private ranch. You've cut locks, ignored posted signs, and now you've been caught again, on camera. If you come back here, I'll have no choice but to arrest you for trespassing. Do I make myself clear?" The look on Karen's face was priceless. Her jaw dropped, her face turned pale, and for once in her life, she had nothing to say. She stammered, sputtered, then finally just muttered, "This isn't over." But everyone there knew it was. The deputy opened the gate and escorted her SUV back out onto the main road. She didn't even glance at me as she drove past, her eyes glued to the steering wheel, her pride shattered. From that day on, Karen never set foot on my ranch again. No more SUVs barreling through my gate. No more smug waves or shouted insults. My land was mine again, quiet and peaceful the way it was meant to be. Word spread fast through the HOA, and the rest of her little followers backed off, too. No one wanted to risk becoming the next Karen caught on camera. Sometimes, dealing with people like her isn't about fighting them head-on. It's about outsmarting them, letting them dig their own hole, and then watching as they fall right in. Karen had thought she was untouchable, that her HOA crown gave her power everywhere she went. But on my ranch, she found out the hard way, this was my kingdom. And in my kingdom, Karen lost.